It's a new year, and like many people out there, I'm sure you want this to be the year that you improve your finances, make yourself more comfortable, and start to increase your understanding of how to be financially savvy. Well, look no further. I've distilled 6 key things that you need to do to keep your finances under control. Oh, and if you stay to the end, I've got a nice little bonus tip for you, so I'll catch you there. Everyone, of course, is at a different stage of their own financial journey, so some of these tips you might have to tweak or change a little bit to fit into your own circumstances and position. So these tips are really aimed at people out there without any massive high interest debt, because of course, if you have got it, that's the priority to focus on. But if you haven't got any, these will definitely go a long way to helping you be more financially secure in 2023. Before we get going though, please let me know the one thing that you want to change about your finances in 2023 down in the comments below. There's actually research to show that you're 42% more likely to achieve a goal just by simply writing it down. So let's all start this new year off on the right footing. And right, with all that out of the way, let's get straight into the tips. And the first one is a key which has massively helped me over the last 3 or 4 years of my life, and that is to create a spending plan or a budget. Before I started to educate myself on finances, I really didn't know where my money was going from month to month. So immediately by starting to track my spending, I could see where all my money was going and perhaps where I could cut back. You only really need to do this for 1 month to start with, and then it becomes very, very obvious the things that you can cut back on to mean that you've got more money in your overall monthly budget. You'll easily be able to highlight any subscriptions that you're paying for on a monthly basis, but you barely ever use. An example of this from myself is that I found I was paying £4.50 every single month to PC World. Now this is for a support package that I took out when I first bought a laptop, but I didn't actually even have that laptop anymore, so it was essentially pointless me paying that money. And I was wasting over £50 per year paying for support for something that I didn't even have anymore. Cancelling subscriptions like this could easily save you hundreds of pounds per year, so it's definitely worth your time to take a look. I've also heard of 2 or more people paying for things like Amazon Prime or Netflix when they both live in the same household. Now this clearly isn't the most economical way to approach things like subscription services, and sharing of accounts in the same household is definitely something that you should be considering. Once you've done this and you've eradicated any spending and any subscriptions that you really could do without, you can then move on to creating your first budget. Now budgets get a lot of bad press for being an oppressive thing which basically constrains what you can spend and where you can spend it. But that's the wrong way to look at it, and budgets are the simplest thing that you can implement to have a more positive financial future. They're essentially a plan of intent, and they're not there to restrict what you can and can't do, because at the end of the day, it's your money. If there's something that you want that you hadn't budgeted for, you can then re-budget and move funds from something else across to the thing that you then want to purchase, so you are in complete control. It just acts as a simplistic guide to hold you a little bit more accountable for your spending. I use the zero budget method, which means that I allocate every single penny that I earn each and every month to a different task or activity. For example, when I get paid, I'll allocate money towards petrol, towards the mortgage, towards gas and electric, towards food, towards dining out, fun, whatever they may be. So I know exactly what I can spend in that month within each of those categories. If a night out or a friend's birthday or something comes along, I can then reallocate my funds. To me, this isn't restrictive at all, and I think if it was, it probably wouldn't work. But this allows me to reallocate money and essentially continue to do what I want, but considering the cost of it each and every time. Now I've used lots of different spreadsheets over time, and I've created my own budgeting spreadsheets as well, but the thing that I've found that works best for me is You Need a Budget, and it's an American-based software app kind of thing, I guess, that you can have on your mobile phone and on your computer that allows you to do this every single month. If you want to give it a go, I've got a link down in the description below that gives you 1 month for free. Give it a go, see if it works for you. I've also got a video somewhere on the channel that I've talked about previously. But if people are interested in it, I'll of course do another review video in the future. Point number 2 then is to consider sinking funds and emergency funds. And this is something that I've only started to do really over the last 2 years. An emergency fund is essentially putting money aside for the unexpected. Perhaps you lose a job, or you've got an unexpected vet bill or something like that. It's just to stop you from having to spend money on a credit card or go into debt should the worst or unexpected happen. Now there's lots of different schools of thought here as to how much exactly you should save in an emergency fund, and it is a fairly big decision. Some people save up to a full year of expenses in a savings account, obviously not invested, so it is getting eaten away by inflation. Whereas other people opt for 3 to 6 months of expenses, and that works very well for them as well. The important thing here though is that the emergency fund is adequate to what your monthly expenses will be. So the easiest thing to do is to have a look at your absolutely non-negotiable spending, add all of that up, and times it by however many months of emergency fund you feel that you need to have. At the end of the day, this is a very personal decision, and it's just giving you the security essentially in case the worst does happen. So like I say, 3 months for me may be right, whereas 12 months for somebody else might be right as well. It's also important to think about where you hold this emergency fund. Of course, you can't invest it because you might need to access it at the drop of a hat. So it should be an easy access savings account, but of course with the highest interest possible, so you're earning maximum return on it. At the moment, I hold mine in the NatWest Regular Saver, which gets me 5% per year, which is fairly nice. There's also sinking funds as well, and this is essentially looking long and considering what is going to come down the track in the future. For example, if you know you've got a birthday coming up, or Christmas for example, what I do is I save little and often throughout the year leading up to that event, so that I know when it comes to it, I've got money to spend on whatever that thing may be. This essentially spreads the cost leading up to whatever the purchase is going to be, meaning that you don't have to find all of the money from one paycheck. Prime examples of sinking funds could be leading up to Christmas, birthdays, or if you know you've got your car or home insurance coming up and you want to pay it all off at once. At the moment, I have 3 main sinking funds, one being Christmas, one being birthdays, essentially for gifts, and the other being for car maintenance and MOT, because of course it's always worth having a bit of money in your back pocket just in case. Having this cash in your back pocket also means that you wouldn't have to eat into your emergency fund for something that, let's be honest, isn't really an emergency. It's something that you know is going to come, so it's just really preparing yourself. Tip number 3 is of course to subscribe to the channel. No, just kidding. It's to use credit effectively. Credit refers to the ability to borrow money for a set period of time, and that the borrowed money will be repaid with interest. Revolving credit, like a credit card, essentially allows the customer to borrow money up to a predetermined threshold and then pay that back in increments over time. The borrower can continue to borrow money as long as the minimum payment is met every single month and they don't go over their credit limit. But of course, credit cards, if not used effectively, can get you into a bit of a hole. Spending money on a credit card every month and then paying it off in full at the end of the month is the best thing that you can do, because A, it increases your credit score and means that you're more likely to get preferable rates in the future when you try to borrow more money, and B, some credit cards have benefits like cashback, which you wouldn't get from spending money on a debit card, and it also gives you more purchasing protection than spending on a debit card. Now, this is of course a far more savvy way to use credit, rather than just spending on a credit card money that you don't really have and then struggling to pay back the monthly payments. Personally, I never had a credit card up until about 2 years ago, when I did a little bit of reading into it and really understood that they're actually not bad at all, and it's how you use them that makes them either a really good tool or your worst enemy. It is of course important to use credit responsibly, and that means not overspending money, of course, that you don't actually have. Number 4 is to shop around for the best savings accounts out there. At the moment, with the rising interest rates, there are lots and great products coming onto the market at the moment. I've already discussed my NatWest 5% regular saver, but there's also some companies out there currently offering up to 7% on a savings account within the UK. Now, these interest rates are largely unheard of, but if you go and check the rate that you're currently getting on one of your savings accounts, I'd be surprised if it's not a little bit below this. I've got a number of different savings accounts, with the lowest one actually paying less than 1%. So if you've got a substantial amount of money, or your emergency fund for example, saved in a savings account, I'd strongly recommend that you go and check what return you're getting on that money. With inflation at around 9%, the 5% I'm getting on my money still nets a 4% loss in real terms. So if you're only sat there in a savings account at 1%, you're actually losing 8% per year spending power on that money. So the best advice I can give you is to go on to Money Saving Expert and have a look at all of the different savings accounts. And there'll be one there, I'm sure, which will fit you perfectly and probably give you a better rate of interest as well. Tip number 5 is to wait on larger purchases for 24 hours or more before making the decision to buy. This goes a long way to limiting that impulsivity that can lead to making purchases and then getting buyer's remorse as soon as it arrives. People are always upgrading to the latest car, the latest phone, the latest watch, the latest laptop. We live in a society now where there's always another new thing coming out that's slightly better, which of course makes people want to buy it. But the question really is do you need it? If you look at iPhones now, they might be getting incrementally better, maybe 1 or 2% with each of the new phones that comes out. but is it really worth that outlay of money to get the next best thing? Or is it probably better to stick with the one that you've got because it does pretty much everything the new one does, it just isn't quite as shiny anymore? This is a strategy that I've implemented that has helped me to save lots of money over the last few years, because I've wanted something, I've stopped myself, considered it, reflected on it, and then thought, I don't really need it. I'd rather put that money towards investing or saving instead. If after 24 to 48 hours you're still sat there and you're thinking, no, I actually really want this, of course, go out and buy it. It's your money. You want to be able to enjoy what you're doing and enjoy your life. But for me, it's something that's really helped me to consider and really think my purchases through before jumping in. Tip number 6 is one that I'm sure everybody does pretty much anyway, but if you're not already, you should 100% be using price comparison websites and cashback websites for all of your online purchases. These are now commonplace, and they really do go a long way to reducing the fees that people pay for things like insurances. Long gone are the days where you used to be rewarded for staying with the same company over time. And now, really, people hop around from insurance company to insurance company every single year. And a real top tip here, if you are shopping through one of these price comparison websites, you can also get cashback through places like Top Cashback. Some of them paying 20, 30 or even £40 for a new insurance premium. This means that not only are you reducing the price you're paying to the minimum possible, but you're also getting paid cashback for money that you would have to spend anyway. It's akin to having a cashback credit card, but here's another top tip. If you use the price comparison website, you also use Top Cashback to get money back, and you also use a cashback credit card to get even more money back. You're using 3 different instruments to make sure that you save more money and get the best deal possible. And the final bonus tip is, of course, to start investing. If you haven't done so already, it's definitely the right time to get going. 2023 has been a really good year for it so far. So if you haven't started investing yet and you want to know exactly what you need to do, check out this video next, which will explain where you can invest and what you can do to get started with just £100. And if you have been investing before on Vanguard or another platform and you want to see my investing portfolio, you can check that out just over here. I'll see you in one of them.